Hi, my name is Kaylee Otterson, and I am the director of Help Me Grow Utah. Thank you so much for being here today. We hope that this is useful. Hopefully, by now, you have watched the other training on this channel that is all about families and developmental monitoring. In that video, Janelle talks about a lot of great things and how parents and families can keep track of milestones on a regular basis as their child grows and changes every single day. What I want to talk about today is actually the next step in that process. After you feel really comfortable monitoring your child's development every day, noticing the big and little changes that they're going through, one of the next best things you can do is completing developmental screenings on a regular basis. So the difference between developmental monitoring and developmental screening is that a developmental screening is a more formal questionnaire. It is something that is completed by the parent, but then it's actually scored by a trained professional. These questionnaires are still very activity-based. It's not like it's going to be a test that you sit down and take silently. This is something that we really want you to be involved with your child as you're doing. All of the questions are things about milestones and things about activities that should be typical for that age. And so it's really engaging. You can do it while you're playing and while you're already doing all those normal activities as a parent every single day. A developmental questionnaire is offered at regular intervals to check in on a child's development. We are looking at early childhood with these questionnaires, so it's available for children from 0 to 5 years old. The scores of a developmental screening are going to show whether or not your child is on track for their age, and it'll show areas where they may need a little bit of extra support and potentially some extra services. The screening that most people recommend, and it's probably the most well-known, is called the Ages and Stages Questionnaire. You also may have heard of it by the ASQ is another acronym that we use. So the ASQ has two different screenings. There's a screening that looks at general development and a screening that looks at social emotional development. The Ages and Stages Questionnaire is something that's recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Utah Department of Health. This is the screening that we think is the most parent-friendly. It's going to be the most accessible to you, and it's a really valid, evidence-based and researched screening that you can do. The Ages and Stages Questionnaire is offered by many healthcare providers, child care providers, and other early childhood services. So if you are already connected to any resources or go ask your child's doctor or your child care provider if they offer any developmental screenings. Maybe you're already then completing them at your child's regular well child checks. That is awesome. If you aren't, or if none of the systems or professionals in your life offer a developmental screening, I will tell you about an option for where any parent in the state of Utah can access it. One thing to keep in mind about these screenings, most everybody who offers them does offer them digitally that you can complete on a smartphone or a computer, something really easy like that. Or you can do a paper copy as well, something that's a little bit more tangible. Everybody has their own preferences about what they like nowadays. So it's offered in both ways. So if you aren't working with anybody who currently offers a developmental screening for you and your child, one of the great resources you have access to is a program called Help Me Grow Utah. This is actually the program that I represent. Help Me Grow Utah is a United Way program that's focused on supporting parents of young children across our state. We offer screenings and support to families at no cost. One of the things that we do is we partner parents with a parent support specialist that reviews the screening results with them. They answer questions about development, anything on the screening or anything that may not have been asked on the screening, things about picky eating, temper tantrums, potty training, all those things that come up as a parent. And then the parent support specialist is also going to connect families to local community resources that could offer extra support. These could be things like early intervention, mental health supports, more screening, more evaluations or assessments. Or it could be simple things like parenting classes, the local library that offers story times, fun local activities going on in your area just to support your child's development even more. And all of the communication with the Help Me Grow Utah Parent Support Specialist team happens through call, text, or email. So it's really easy for busy parents to just get a little bit of extra support along their parenting journey. So you can definitely access any of these screenings through us at no cost and at any point that you want to during your child's early years. So right now, I am going to actually show you guys a couple of examples of what this questionnaire looks like. So first, I'm going to show you an example of a paper copy. So this is what a paper questionnaire looks like. The first page you are going to see is just your demographic information, just your name, your child's name, their date of birth. This is how whoever is giving you the questionnaire is going to know who you are and how to get the information back to you. Next, you're going to go through and see lots of different questions. These questionnaires are about 35 questions long. There's a lot of questions on here, but it goes pretty quick because, like I said, it's all activity based. So these questionnaires look at 5 different developmental areas. You'll see we have questions for communication skills. So this is asking about how your child is communicating with you. For certain ages, how are they putting words together? How are they letting you know what they need? So for all of the questions on here, you're going to have some multiple choice options to select. You can either select yes, sometimes, or not yet. If your child's doing this skill all the time, you feel like they've got it mastered, then you would say yes. If you feel like they're just starting to do it, they haven't quite mastered it, they kind of do it off and on, and you're not sure if they're capable of doing it all the time, then that would be a sometimes. And if they really haven't started doing that skill or that activity yet, then you would mark not yet. We definitely encourage all parents to try these activities with your kiddo. If you aren't sure whether or not they can do it, pull out some supplies that might be needed and start doing it. For example, if this is asking you, if your child can answer the following questions and you're not sure, go ahead and ask them these questions. What do you do when you're hungry? What do you do when you're tired? Go ahead and ask them, and you may be surprised at what your child is capable of. So that first section that it's looking at is communication. The next section we're going to look at is gross motor. How is your child moving their body in large ways? How are they using their arms and their legs? How are they running and jumping? Those kind of things. The next section is going to be fine motor. This is looking at the small movements that your child makes, mostly with their hands. Can they string things together? Can they pick up little crumbs and pieces of food? Can they use scissors? All those kind of things are going to fall under fine motor skills for various ages. The next section that this screening looks at is going to be problem solving. So this is how does your child make sense of the world around them? How are they basically solving problems? Can they figure out how to get things that are out of their reach? Can they identify colors and body parts? Those kind of things. And then the personal social section is the last, the 5th and final section that this questionnaire looks at. And that's looking at your child's knowledge and skills about themselves and the world kind of around them. How do they interact with other things? Do they know their name? Do they look at themselves in a mirror? Are they engaging in that way? So those are going to be questions under that area. And then at the very end of the questionnaire, there's an overall section, which is really just a handful of open-ended questions. This is where you as a parent have the opportunity to expand on answers from above potentially, and to give more context to the professional that you're working with about your concerns or the wonderful things that you're noticing. One of my favorite things, we do the questionnaire with many, many, many parents every year. One of my favorite things to see is how parents oftentimes use this section and these open-ended questions to brag about their child. Tell us the things your child is doing great. Does your child talk like other toddlers their age? Do you feel like they're talking less or they're talking more? Maybe you feel like they're more advanced. Go ahead and share that here. That's something that's wonderful for the professionals that you're working with or the parent support specialist at Help Me Grow Utah. It's wonderful for them to know so they can further support you in that area of development. So that is what kind of a paper questionnaire looks like. You just fill in the bubbles, write in the open-ended answers, and that is where it's going to end. So it does look like a lot of pages there. Now I'm going to quickly show you what the online version of this looks like. So we're going to look at the screening through Help Me Grow Utah's website. This is accessible to you right now. If you went to our website, you could follow the exact same steps that I'm doing, and you could finish and you could take this screening right now. So on helpmegrowutah.org, we're going to click on the section above that says Your Developing Child. You'll also see on the homepage, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a big button here that says Developmental Screening. So we are going to click on that section, and it'll take us to the page that's all about developmental screening. You can watch a video here about a parent's experience doing developmental screening. You can choose which screening you want to do, as far as the general development screening or the social emotional screening. The Spanish versions of these screenings are linked below as well. And then there's a bunch of great information on this page about why to screen. What is a developmental screening? This goes over those 5 areas that I talked about before. Kind of what does that mean? How do they, what are each of these kind of sections looking at? So if we want to look at the screening for general development, we're going to click on this big button right here. So the first thing you're going to see is a page that has some instructions as well as some privacy policy information. We want you as a parent to know what is happening with your data. Help Me Grow Utah, for example, partners with the Utah Department of Health to give parents access to this online version of the screening. The Utah Department of Health collects aggregate data on families to see how kids in our state are doing. They want to know, what should we be supporting? What policies should we be making to better support families and kids in our area? So that's one of the ways that they utilize this data. If you're not comfortable sharing your data in that way, then don't complete the online screening. Go ahead and talk to Help Me Grow or talk to your the professional that you're working with, and ask them just if you can complete a paper copy to keep your data just between you and them. So this is going to give you some great information about, once again, what the Ages and Stages questionnaire, the ASQ, is. And then as you scroll down, you'll begin to enter your child's information. So we are going to start a screening for a kiddo that's about a year old. So, oops. And you'll notice the format for the online screening is actually year, month, day. So just make sure you keep that in mind when you are filling this out. We've had a lot of parents do the wrong screening because no one uses year, month, day. Okay, so we're going to put in our child's date of birth. We're going to indicate whether or not the baby was born early. We do want to adjust for prematurity. If your child was early, then they are still trying to work on some of those skills, and we want to make sure that we're looking at the correct skills that that child should be doing at that age. So this kiddo was actually 6 weeks premature. So we are going to complete the screening today, but you also have the option of saying, oh, I completed this a couple weeks ago and now I just want to enter the information today. So when we click submit, it takes us to the next page. It's going to tell us that we're going to do the 10-month questionnaire. And if you'll notice, we put in a child whose birthday was exactly a year ago. So this definitely adjusted the screening to give us a different age, a little earlier than 12 months, so that we could keep in mind that prematurity and really look at skills that are applicable to that child's age. So this does give you an option to print out the questionnaire from here if you would like to. You can click that button and it'll generate a PDF as well. Or you can click enter your results, and we'll be taken to the next page to fill out our demographic information. So we are going to enter all of our info here. It does take a little bit of time to go through and enter all this. It can take some time if you're on a smartphone as well, but you get pretty quick. I feel like we're all used to filling out forms like this nowadays. Okay. Okay, you'll see that all of the bubbles here that are have a red asterisk, those are the ones that are required. There are a couple of additional fields where it's not required. If you speak a different language in your home and prefer to be followed up in a different way, you can add that in here. So the first information we filled out was the child's information. Now you're going to fill out your information as the parent. There is this handy little button here where you can click to fill in the same address information from above, which is really nice. It'll save you a little bit of time. And then at the end, you'll want to put your email address in if you have one. If you don't, go ahead and click that I do not have one button. So after we enter in all of our demographic information, then we'll see that we're doing the 10-month ASQ for our pretend child, Susie Smith. It'll tell us her date of birth. We can kind of verify some of that information up there. And then it's going to go through and ask us those same questions that it would have on the paper version that we just looked at. So you'll see it splits it up into different sections. So we'll read the questions and answer them below. So yes, my baby is making those sounds. Only sometimes are they copying the sounds that I make. I can get the child to do it sometimes. So we'll go through and answer all these questions. If I'm not sure if my child can play peekaboo or patty cake or kind of games like that, then I'm going to want to try it with her and see how it goes. So as we click the answers, it'll go section by section. So now we're in the gross motor section. We can answer our questions here. You'll see there are a couple of pictures in some areas where it'll give you a little bit of a description of what things look like. To help kind of break it up and give you a visual. If you do have any questions about what is a question asking or what does it mean as you're going along, go ahead and ask the professional that you're working with for some clarification. They are there to help you and to make this screening process as easy as possible. Okay, so we're just going to quickly go through some of these. So I can, you will notice that if it doesn't let you move on, it will pop up a red bar here at the top to tell you kind of what you did wrong. So we'll just fix that in this instance since we're just clicking on answers really fast. Okay. So as we get to the end of the multiple choice, the 5 developmental areas, then you're going to see kind of what the overall section looks like here in the online screening. I will note this is a really mobile friendly screening, so you can easily do this on your smartphone as well. So you'll see that there are boxes for you to type in answers. And if I have a concern here, then I'll say, I can just type in my concern right there. So go through and answer all these questions. Once you get to the very end, you'll notice there is a submit button. This is not going to go back to the professional that you're working with to be scored until you click that submit button, or if you're doing a paper copy, until you give that back to them. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a screening that does need to be scored by a professional in order to know kind of what comes next. So once we submit it, it'll just ask us if we're sure we want to. We will say yes. And then you'll notice this isn't like a normal internet quiz where it's going to pop up your results. The early childhood professional that you're working with will get in touch with you and talk with you about those results. If you're working with Help Me Grow Utah, your parent support specialist is going to reach out to you within 2 weeks of completing this questionnaire to go over the results of the questionnaire and then to kind of talk about what happens next. So I do just want to show you quickly, we're going to look at the paper copy again really quick. This is an example of what the screening results are going to look like. And let me zoom in just a little bit here. So you will see that here are the 5 different developmental areas that we answered questions in. There is kind of a scale along here to show you how your child is doing. Scores that are in this unshaded zone here at the top. That means your child is on track. They are developing typical for what's expected for their age. Or if they are in this lightly shaded area here, then that means that they are kind of, we call it the monitoring zone. That's where we want to provide you some extra activities and some additional support at home. This is where you're going to want to kind of practice some skills and really focus in on those areas. And if there are any scores that fall here in the dark shaded zone, those are areas where there is risk for a concern, potential risk for a delay there. And that's where the professional you're working with should refer you to an organization that can help, that can do more of an assessment and a deeper dive to see if your child would benefit from some extra support or services. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and talk about what happens next. So after you complete a developmental screening, every family that completes a developmental screening, at least with Help Me Grow Utah, and from what I understand from most other early childhood agencies and professionals as well, every family should receive some activities to support their child's development. The Ages and Stages questionnaires, those tools, come with activities that can be provided to parents that are really fun things that you can do at home. They split those activities up into the sections that follow the screening. So you're going to get a list of communication activities. You're going to get a list of problem solving activities. So if there's one of those areas that your child does need a little bit of extra practice on, you can really focus on incorporating those specific activities into your daily routine with your child. Those are things that are helpful to any parent, whether or not you have concerns or you're just looking to further support your child as they grow and develop. Like I said, the professionals should be giving you suggestions on things that you can work on at home. And then if you do have concerns, whether or not the screening shows it, or if you're just voicing concerns as a parent, you know your child best. You are the expert. You are seeing them in everyday situations. And if you're seeing something, even if the screening isn't showing anything, your concerns are valid. And we want to help and get you connected to more support and help you find out what your next steps might be. So you will hopefully be connected to local resources that can provide more support. Some of the most common ones that we at Help Me Grow refer to are early intervention. That's a term for the agencies across the state that provide services and support for children who have developmental concerns from ages 0 to 3 years old. If your child is older than that, the best and first place that we would go is going to be your local school district. The preschool programs across the state also provide extra assessments and extra support for children that might have developmental concerns. So if you have more questions about developmental screenings, if you would like to try one out and don't have access to one anywhere else, please visit helpmegrowutah.org. Like I said, we are here to help support parents across the state at no cost. We offer these screenings that I mentioned, as well as some additional screenings, and our parent support specialists are on hand to answer questions that you may have, to help you connect to resources. If you already know that you have concerns and you need to know where you can go for speech therapy or for an autism evaluation, our parent support specialists know what those local resources are in your community, and we can take away some of that legwork and trying to find out where to go and help you through that process. We can help you work through the barriers and help you connect. You are doing an amazing job as a parent. We as community members and as Help Me Grow and United Way, we are just here to support you and give you extra tools that you deserve to do your best as a parent. So if you have any questions, please visit helpmegrowutah.org and keep up the great work.